Hello, so my name is Rob Shimshock. I'm with TheRebel.media, and today I'm here with Anne-Marie Waters from For Britain. Anne-Marie, what brings you to this event?
Well, it's a very important event. We're here to talk about censorship, deplatforming, something that has accelerated rapidly in the last couple of years, particularly in my country, in the UK. But it's going to, you have the First Amendment in America, but I worry. It's powerful, but it's not unbreakable. And I worry. I see a lot of the patterns happening in the United States that we have in Europe, on campuses, for example, deplatforming of people on campuses. You've got the same sort of political correctness coming out of the Democrats that we have coming out of our left wing. It's hate speech, things like this, and they get to define, of course, what hate speech is, and what hate speech is anything they disagree with or anything that's politically inconvenient for them. So it's really important that we talk about this, and I'm here to tell about the censorship that I have suffered in my own 10 years or so, that I've been speaking mainly about Islam, and I have, been deplatformed several times, kicked out of universities, kicked off Twitter, and other things. My party has really struggled with basic things like getting venues, for example. We will hire a venue for an event, and the so-called anti-fascists, which they call themselves, which is rather ironic, will phone up the venue owner and threaten them, intimidate them, and we'll get our venues cancelled. So we have to hold all of our meetings in private, and it's very difficult to do. We struggle to get bank accounts, for example. No one would give us a bank account. Even software. We struggle to buy software that we needed. So it's they're trying to shut us down at every juncture, every opportunity they get to try and silence us, and it's so important. I mean, it's democracy depends on this. That's how important it is. We cannot have democracy without debate.
Right, now you mentioned that Antifa is one of these primary agents of censorship. What do you think about the other institutions? Are there certain parties on campus? Are you seeing any patterns of different, parties that are perhaps more likely to censor and more likely to get away with it?
In the UK, Labour. The Labour Party, which is the official opposition and could well form a government, is a very significant party. Has its Home Secretary, its shadow Home Secretary. She is the leader of a group called Stand Up to Racism. And this group, I was a parliamentary candidate last year, and I was unable to attend a hustings event because about 100 of them had stood outside, and the police deemed it unsafe for me to attend, and the event was cancelled. So this is a debate for an election to our national parliament, which was cancelled because I was going to be one of the candidates, and Stand Up to Racism didn't like it. Now, this is headed by a woman who is a senior politician, and if Labour were to win an election, she would be the Home Secretary. That means that law and order would be in her remit, immigration would be in her remit, and this is who she is. She leads a group which sends out people to shut down events they don't like with intimidation and violence. There were arrests made that day.
Yes, so you mentioned arrests, and of course you mentioned that the police deems it unsafe for you to be there. Now, we see with Berkeley, campuses like Berkeley, sometimes the police will have a security fee, and the campus group will pay like a very exorbitant amount to host a controversial speaker. But oftentimes the university just deems it unsafe and they close it down, or the police themselves, as we saw in Berkeley, stand down. Have there been any instances like that in Britain in which you would have expected a police presence, but you feel like they have had some shortcoming on their part?
Well, actually, the event I just mentioned to you, we approached them days before. We knew there was going to be trouble at this. We asked for it to be policed correctly so that I could attend. With the way the police react to these things is to send the innocent person away, because you'll get hurt if you turn up. Yeah. Well, why don't you remove the people who will cause me harm rather than removing me? And we actually we lodged an official complaint against the police for that, and they admitted fault. They admitted that they should have, my rights were what they should have protected, but they didn't. And initially they had 2 or 3 police there, and eventually, slowly, more officers began to sort of dribble through. But they must have known, we warned them. My security team tried to speak to the police beforehand about that this was serious, we needed serious policing of this. They wouldn't even speak to them. I mean, the police are not really interested in protecting these speeches, and they're more interested in cancelling them. And I do know that the police have contacted venues as well where I was due to speak to warn them, you're inviting trouble if you have her speaking. And then the venue will shut it down. So the police are encouraging the closing down of debate because it's too much, I guess, hassle to police them.
Yeah, now speaking more directly to the subject at hand for this conference, which is Islamism, Sharia law, and censorship of that issue, do you see that certain groups, perhaps, whenever I cover campus issues, I cover Students for Justice in Palestine often, and how they will shut down often like a group, an Israeli group will try to host a speaker, they'll shut the event down. Do you see stuff like that in certain groups kind of getting away with censorship in a rampant fashion?
Absolutely. I mean, at universities, I was prevented from speaking at a university. Ironically, again, I was going to speak about censorship, and it was about censorship of those who criticize Islam. I had written a report which highlighted universities across Britain which had known jihadis, open jihadis, the kind of people who call for stonings and lashings and the whole lot. They can speak. They were being invited by the Islamic societies of these universities. I wrote a report on this, published it, and was due to speak at the University of West London about it, and they shut me down last minute. This is not uncommon. Universities are actually where this is primarily taking place. This is, again, anti-Israel sentiment is very strong. They will not allow debate, and it's quite frightening that it's happening in universities, because one thinks that this is where debate should take place, and where if one is trying to educate yourself into thinking, to becoming a thinker, then one should be open to listening to their opponent's point of view. But it isn't, of course, about education. It's about tyranny. It's a totalitarian ideology. These are totalitarian ideas, which are, let's not win a debate, let's shut down the opponent.
All right, well, Anne-Marie, thanks so much. Hopefully we can get some solutions out of today's conversation.
Thanks very much.